Aina, and welcome to Voices of Truth One-on-One with Hawaii's Future, brought to you by the Kiwani Foundation. I'm Ehu Keikahu Cardwell, and here we are today in Kapiolani Park on the island of Oahu. We have a wonderful guest on the show. Let's go on over here and meet her. Paulette. Aloha. Aloha. How are you?
I'm wonderful, and yourself?
Wonderful, thank
Fabulous.
you. Maikai, thank you for being on the show. Mahalo for being on Voices of Truth. Introduce yourself to everybody.
Hi, good afternoon. This is Paulette Kahalepuna.
Wonderful, and we're standing in Kapiolani Park.
Yes.
And the reason we're standing here is because not only because it's a beautiful day.
Yes.
But because right up the street from where we are right now, you have a shop.
Yes, I do.
And you have a very interesting business, don't you?
Thank you. Yes, I do, and it's one of a kind, really.
Wow.
Yes.
Tell us what that is, Paulette.
Well, Nalima Milihulu Noel is the name of the shop.
And what does that mean?
It means the skilled hands that touch the feathers.
The skilled hands that touch the feathers.
Right. A name given to Mom, Mary Lou Kekuewa, Auntie Mary Lou, as many people knew her.
Yes.
Given that name by Auntie Edith Kanakaole.
Oh, wow.
Many years ago, Mom was searching for a name for her business, and she had started with various kupuna, and Auntie Edith presented her with that name.
So it was actually your mom, Auntie Mary Louise, that started the business, yes?
Yes.
And what year was that?
We actually opened our business in 1991.
Uh-huh.
So this year we make 20 years. When Mom learned this, it became just kind of a hobby.
Uh-huh.
And then learned about kahili construction because that was used in the royal courts in the days of old. And so, but where did we get the feathers? In the 50s, our feathered friends, our native birds, were either extinct or endangered. So, of course, we couldn't go out and gather.
Right.
So we needed a source. And the feathers at the time, in the 50s, were from another island. And Mama loved this story. Long Island, New York. You know.
That island.
Where? Yes, that island. You know, and everyone was saying, where? Kaho'olawe, Kauai, where? You know, no. Long Island. As a resource, we could call and say, I need a pound of this or I need a pound of that.
Right.
And just so we had feathers to work with.
Uh-huh.
There are no fake feathers yet. And as long as they're available, they're byproducts. We eat chicken, duck, rooster.
Sure.
Turkey, you know, what do you do with the feathers?
Right.
So as a resource, we at least have that.
Wow.
You know, we're not sitting cutting paper or anything, but we have feathers.
Wow.
And even though we have to have them dyed so that they do that replication of when we do our Lei Hulu or the Ahu'ula, the cape, or the Mahi'oli, the helmet, or the kahili, we can at least have resources of natural feathers dyed, but just to emulate the work of our kupuna.
Wow, super. So, Paulette, you just listed all the different ways in which feathers are used in the Hawaiian culture.
Right.
First of all, for the leis.
Yes.
Also for the capes.
Yes.
Also for the mahi'oli, the helmet, as well as the standard bearers, the kahili.
Right.
Which denote royal rank, yes?
Yes.
Right. And most people, I think, have at one time or another seen those. They may not have known what they are, but they're pretty famous icons, pretty well-known icons, I should say, in the Hawaiian culture.
Exactly.
Wow.
I mean, if you saw them coming, it's like looking at these coconut trees and palm trees. You see something like that, your attention is drawn to them.
You can't miss it.
No, can't miss it. The height, the majesty.
Yes.
And then when you see kahili, whether it's done with flower ornately or crepe paper, if you've ever been to Hawaii and you see that cylinder shape and a pole and someone carrying it, you kind of pay attention.
Yes.
You know?
You better pay attention.
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely.
Paulette, how far back in the culture, in the Hawaiian culture, do the use of these things go, actually? How far back have they been traced?
They're still being traced, actually.
Really?
When you know, because people are now being more mindful. So then the questions come up like you've just asked, you know, so when did it start? How did it come here? So we're still, you know, kind of researching that. With each time I do a presentation or lecture or something like this, it poses a question and then it stimulates the audience. And they kind of respond to that.
Yes.
Because they remember the tutu or the grandpa
Right.
or the uncle
Right.
telling them the stories. And that's how we're getting that dating,
Yes.
that time of when it was probably done. When we look at many of the older kahili at the Bishop Museum and those that used to be at the palace and Queen Emma Summer Palace in various locations, we're looking at birds' feathers that are protected today, like the iwa, the kauai ula, the kauai kea. Many of our seabirds' feathers were used primarily for the kahili because they could stand the weather conditions and so forth.
So they were sturdy.
Very sturdy.
Yeah.
And then the material that were the base for them, for the branches and such, were ie and olona. We don't gather these things today.
Because they're endangered.
Well, they're endangered, and then it's finding them. Much of the ie you have to go into valleys because it's a parasite plant. We don't have nurseries that we go get.
Yes.
And
yes.
we're not planting them ourselves in our gardens.
Yes.
So to find the olona, you had to go mauka.
Yeah.
To find the ie, you had to go mauka.
You had to go way up in the mountains.
Right, but then our mountains were here.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
all filled in land.
Yeah.
You know, it was so very different in the
Yes.
1500s
Yes.
and the 1600s,
Yes.
you know. So where they could get the materials close at hand. Today we cannot.
When a lot of people look at these objects, whether they're kahili or whether they're the feather capes, I think maybe some people think that because they're made of feathers that they're flimsy, and that's not the case at all,
Not
are
at
they?
all. They're very sturdy, they're hardy. The word ku, you know, to stand,
To stand
tall, proud.
Yes.
You know, that in itself is an indication. But then, of course, when you speak to anyone from Hawaii, regardless of the nationality, when you say kahili, everybody sees that.
Yes.
It's an automatic.
Yes. But before the feathers go on, whether it's a kahili or whether it's a feather cape or mahioli, the helmet, there's a lot of, I'll say, superstructure underneath
Right.
that is constructed first. That's
Right.
very sturdy. And it's only the feathers that are put on last.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Wow.
And you know, the tufts or the bundles of the feathers, like say for the mahioli and the ahu'ula,
Yeah.
were done with, if you had a parakeet, gathering those feathers on the paper that you clean out of the cage.
Yes.
If you took 5 to 7 of those and washed them,
Yes.
and then laid them one on top of the other and bundled them very carefully together, that was one uwo.
Wow.
For the one little puka on the netting, whether it was the mahioli or the ahu. And today we use feathers like these that are much larger, so we do an inch rather than these little itty bitties. But we still do the 3 wraps and half inch, the bundling, making those uwo for the artwork.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing.
But the olona and the cordage that was used to make the netting and such, today, you know, we go look for netting. We
Sure.
don't make our own netting.
Sure.
The folks that, you know, we remember, people going down to the alawai made their own crab net. People that went out to get opelu, they made their own netting. You know, very few, if at all, do people make their own netting today. The substitution over the years, that material that they once used, they no longer gather.
Paulette, back in the old days, it wasn't everybody that made these objects. There were very few specific people that were trained from childhood to make them.
Exactly.
And so today, I know that there's, like today, you know, there's not a whole bunch of people that makes these.
No.
Very few, and they're specialists because it's a very intricate, specialized process to make them, yeah?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So those people that were selected, they were well trained, they knew how to identify the birds, they knew where in the valleys or throughout the forested area, and when they were most available. Common, you know, when we think logically, availability of feathers during molting season. So they weren't out just destroying the forest to get the birds and
Right.
depleting the forest of these birds.
There were only certain times of the year you could get
Right,
the feathers.
during molting season.
Right, and moreover, there were, I guess, 2 different categories of people. The people that actually collected the feathers, and then they, you know, if they trapped the birds, they got the feathers and released the birds, yeah.
Right.
And then there were the people that they gave the feathers to that actually
did the
made
work. And it was the kani.
It was the guy.
It was the men because of the
Wow.
mana. So because these were things that were made for our ali'i.
Oh.
So the ali'i kane, his helmet, his mahi'ole, his ahu, his cape, was made by men because of the mana.
How many people today are skilled in this art of lei feather making and able to make, capes and things like that?
Maybe a couple handful?
Really?
Yes,
Wow. So like you're talking like maybe 10, 12 people.
maybe,
Maybe. And
Maybe.
you're one of them.
loosely.
I don't think there's any loosely about it, Paulette. I knew your mama, you were trained well. She was fabulous. She
Yes.
was a master
Yeah.
at
Well,
this.
my dad, for me, fortunately, before he passed, he taught 3 students, and 1 completed theirs, Brother
Wow.
Franklin Powell. And he wore his ahu to the canonization of Father Damien, and wore it to Mount Sinai with his ahu and his malo, and he chanted. And then he came back and he went to Machu Picchu and he wore his ahu and he chanted. When I was first asked after Dad passed away, he said, "Oh, we want to learn kahili making." And I'm like, "Okay, Dad, you got to help me with this one, help me with my hands and help me to recall, the classes and such." And I'm happy to say that I have over 12 students that are doing ahu. I have 6 that have finished.
You were trained from very young to do this, yes?
Actually, I was a junior in high school
Wow.
when I first saw Mom doing it, and I asked if she would teach me.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
and it's
No wonder you're so good.
oh, thank you. It's a lot of years.
Wow. Now these objects, contain a lot of what the culture calls mana, or the energy of people
Yes.
that have worn them, or that they're about. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
So
And
that's a
yeah,
heavy duty thing.
It is. Well, it depending on maybe the organization you belong to, or the hui you belong to. A lot more people today are using it for hula adornment.
Yes.
And one of the kupuna that for her to see someone wearing hulu as an adornment for hula, for her it's inappropriate because this was ali'i adornment.
It wasn't used like that in the
Yeah,
old days.
exactly.
It was a much more serious
Right.
use.
There was a religious, not necessarily religious, but yes.
Spiritual,
respect,
yes.
Spiritual.
Respect,
Very spiritual, respect.
And also for rank and
The
things
rank,
like
right?
Yeah.
Because here in Hawaii, we don't have precious stones, we don't have diamonds and pearls and so forth. This was our precious commodity,
Aha.
our hulu.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, now, Paulette, I got to ask you the big question. We've been walking here through Kapiolani Park
Yes.
talking about this.
Yeah.
And I know your shop's right up the street.
Yes.
What do you say we hop in the car,
Okay.
go up there, and you give us a tour of your shop? Because
Cool.
I'm dying to see what's inside.
Okay.
Can we do that?
Yes.
Let's go.
In 1991, when I approached my parents and said, I think we should open a business. Mom, you mentioned this once before, and so let's look into it. And she says, "Are you kidding? I'm 65, Dad's 70. We're too late. We're too old." Oh, no, Mom. The saying goes, you build it, they will come.
Right.
And I said, you have such a reputation, and people will come, So Mom and Dad started looking for a location, and we lived not very far from here, up Maunalani Heights. And the location of Kapahulu, when you look at and story with many of our old timers, Kapahulu was quite the happening place.
Yes, back in the old days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it just kind of fit with Mom and Dad and just the whole atmosphere of Kapahulu. We've been here 20 years, and we continue to offer classes here in the shop.
That's what these tables are for, right? This is where the
It's
class
a
is.
working area.
Wow, look at
So we
this.
start here, we're set up like we have placemats, and here's where you sit.
Here's where you sit and
Here's
learn how
where
to
you
do this.
sit. Here are the most favorite colors, red and gold.
The ones that you run out of.
Yeah, all
Right.
the time.
Gotcha. But you've
Right.
got every color here.
Yes,
My
like the
goodness.
color of the rainbow.
Wow.
Yes. In this picture frame here, these feather items belong to my great-grandmother, who's the lady in the center.
These right here.
Yes.
And that's her right
And
there.
she's wearing
Wow.
that lei, and that's the remnants of what's left of that lei, that yellow lei.
Wow.
And the hairpiece that's above, that she has on her head, and the Lei Kamoi, which is below, are bantam chicken, which is a bird that was found a lot on all the islands, the bantam chicken. So they use that feather a lot for the browns and so forth. This picture here, or Dad, right next to it, has a feather lei that was done by one of our Kane students using dyed goose feathers. But they wanted to honor him. You know, they made the lei, they came in and they said, Auntie Marilu, I brought this lei for Uncle Paul. And she looks at them and says, but Uncle died. I know, but I came to put it on his picture. You know, because they wanted to gift him something.
Sure.
These are hand kahili, or kahili pa'alima. And in doing our research,
So these would be held by a person as
these
they
were
walk.
carried, right? And so many times when the ali'i did, more recently, like during, I would say, safely say from maybe Kamehameha the Fourth, during his time and such, there's evidence that there were times that they just couldn't gather an entourage to go meet a delegate or go to a particular meeting. So they would take a kahili, either they would carry themselves as, so it's like a pre-announcement.
Yes.
They're coming, pay attention.
Yes.
Or it would be carried by a retainer back of them, and still getting the attention of the persons around. If you were in the Ka'u Desert and you were coming up to Ocean View, you would know someone was coming because of the presence of the magnificence of the kahili.
And you would know to get out of their way.
Yes, and be prepared.
Be prepared,
You know,
yeah.
if you needed to have some mea'ai or some inu or whatever the case might be.
Something to eat, something
Yes,
to drink.
right.
Yes.
And that you would have it prepared because you knew someone was coming. And it wasn't to be afraid of, although there's some stories that say that, you know, the shadows didn't fall on the ali'i and so forth. But out of respect, yes, you would prostrate yourself, but then you were there in case they needed comfort.
So here's one that's
Exactly.
much larger.
Right.
And I can see, looking in here, all of the structure inside that holds these feathers on
Right,
here.
and very modern. These are feathers that are dyed goose. These were dyed Canada goose. This is regular dyed goose and rooster hackles, but they're done on picks and attached to barbecue sticks, and the holes are drilled into the pole and stuck into it, rather than the lashing that was done
Right.
with the old timers.
How long does it take to make something like this, Paulette?
If you have enough manpower, something that could be done within 3 months,
Really?
but it's the time.
Yeah.
And that would be gathering a nice size army. Otherwise, it could take as much as a year.
Wow.
Yeah.
So this really is, I mean, what we're talking about here in your store really is labor of love.
Yes.
That's what
most
it is.
definitely.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
So in using the dyed colors, we accomplish a goal. But we, you know, a lot of people, like in this case here, we have more natural feathers in the hand kahili, so rooster hackles that are not dyed, pheasant feathers that are not dyed. You know, people want to get to a more natural rather than the dyed materials.
Yes.
So duck is used.
How beautiful.
Yes, they're magnificent. And of course, in the natural light, if we were to have Eva or the Kauai'ula, in fact, I have some tail feathers here from the Kauai'ula.
Oh, look
and
at
there's
that.
only one on the tail of a tropic bird.
Wow.
One. We've been lucky enough because of what we do and how we teach that we've had wonderful gifts that have been shared by families whose family members may have done the work at one time and it's in their house but they don't know what to do with it. So we're kind of a modified collection museum sort of thing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, half museum, half part
We
museum,
don't
part
charge an admission.
I noticed there's some beautiful things over here, and of course more feathers.
Yes.
These are look at these feathers here.
Yeah,
Wow.
those are pheasant.
Beautiful.
The
My
kolohala.
goodness. My goodness.
Yeah, and actually in the making of the feather lei specifically, there were two typical styles of feather
Okay.
lei. Like we've been wearing a modified format, but feather lei was done
Oh wow.
really poi poi.
Wow,
This
look
is
at that.
hand tying every feather one at a time to a center core.
And how long does it take to make something like that?
About 80 hours.
80 hours.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. And then the other traditional format would be the Lei Kamoi.
Wow.
And it's quite evident. It's two styles.
Yes. Totally
Poi
different.
poi, the feathers turning out. kamoy, the feathers laying down, but yet all hand-tied or vili style, and 3 wraps and a half hitch. So if anybody has done any fly tying, they know what a half hitch is, or any ropes and such.
Wow.
But every single feather individually is then hand-tied, one at a time. Then we consider this style of lei more contemporary, at least we do, because this was done after metal needles were introduced.
I see.
Hawaii had no needles. They had coral, shell, and bone as a needle, not a substitute. That was what they had.
Right.
And until the early explorers, adventurers, happen chance, people came, merchants with metal, then we adapted using that metal and thread. We had olona, which is a fine fiber that could use as thread and cordage.
Yes.
But we didn't have, we didn't do this style. And we don't have a specific date and time as to when this particular style was done. But this is called humu papa. Humu is a style of stitching, papa is flat. And this is all kolohala.
How
And
beautiful.
there's 4 stitches on every single
wow.
feather, so that as you're stitching 4 times on each feather.
My goodness.
And
Wow.
this I made for my husband many, many years ago.
Wow.
So, in the technique of lei making, these are your basics. And this
Wait a
is
minute. These are your basics?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. This is your basic
The
style
basic styles.
of lei. Vili
Different.
poi poi, vili kamoy, humu papa.
Wow. But you can do
So-
some very, very intricate things
Yes.
with those
Yes.
styles.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like what we're wearing.
Yeah.
It's the two techniques. The flower portion is the vili poi poi.
Gotcha.
The K-leg section is the lei kamoy.
So pointed outward, pointed inward.
Right. So
Gotcha.
you're creating another look, but using the 2 techniques.
Wow, how beautiful. Paulette, you have customers, clients from all throughout Hawaii
Yes.
in your store, but also all throughout the world, yeah?
Yes.
Wow.
The Pacific Islanders that come here because they're looking for feathers, because like we said earlier, they don't have feathers from
Yes.
their native birds either. They're
Yes.
extinct or endangered. And so we do get a nice trade from the Samoans and Tongans and Fijian and Rapa Nuans, Maoris, because they use collectively feathers in their art
Sure,
or in their ceremonial mats.
sure. But I'm sure that you have clients and customers outside of the Pacific region also,
Yes.
outside of Oceania.
Yes.
You have people from all over the world, right?
Yes.
Wonderful,
We do. The lady
wonderful.
that was here today, who's actually from Scandinavia but now resides in Canada, has learned about our art form and came today. She had a small window in time to learn about this.
Anybody who's watching us right now who goes, man, I would love to get some of those supplies and maybe learn how to do it, or even talk to Paulette about it, they can contact you.
Yes, and I do have a book.
Do you?
Yes.
Wonderful. Let's see
Yes.
the book.
This is our book.
Wow.
Feather Lei is an art, and it was put together by Mom and I.
Yep.
And it's a complete instructional book. And there's Mom.
There's your mom.
Yeah,
Oh,
there's
Bill,
Mama.
wow.
And some of our students, in fact, this lady, Auntie Kahalepuna, had a shop in IL. And she's passed, and the work has, there's no longer anyone teaching through her. And Auntie Marikovich, who you know,
Right, right.
we have a photo of her as well. But it just
Look at
goes
it.
through.
All
These
the
are Mama's
instructions.
hands
Wow.
doing the work.
So people
stages.
can learn by this book the
Yes.
step-by-step instructions
Yes.
on how to do
Yes.
Lei Hulu.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
And people can order this book from you by
Yes.
calling you up or ordering it online, yes?
Yeah. Well, I don't know about ordering online. Remember, I'm not familiar with that, but
Okay.
you can call me.
All right, so people can call you and order this book.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Wonderful. Wow, these are beautiful things. Paulette, I wish we had more time to look around at everything,
Thank
but
you.
we gotta wrap it here. Thank you so much for
You're
sharing
so
your
welcome.
knowledge
You're welcome.
and and the history of these things. It's just so many beautiful things here. Please keep doing what you're doing. Don't stop.
Thank you.
Don't stop.
Thank you.
Mahalo for being on
Bye.
Voices of Truth.
Oh, you're very
And
welcome.
to our viewers, mahalo to you for joining us on this very special edition. Remember, you can watch us on the web 24/7 on voicesoftruthtv.com. I'm Ahu Kahu Cardwell with the Kiwani Foundation. And until next time, ahui ho! Mahalo for watching Voices of Truth One-on-One with Hawaii's Future. Watch us on the web 24/7 at voicesoftruth.tv.com. You'll find all our shows, including this one, in case you want to see it again or share it with family and friends. Also view our weekly video commentaries at freehawaiitv.com. And check out our blog, published daily, at freehawaii.info. It's all part of the Free Hawaii Broadcasting Network.